Well, we find ourselves once again on a top 10 list of an overall year. These lists are always really difficult for me to make, but I always kind of keep it in mind throughout the year of where each album kind of fits within the grand scheme of things. As I always say within these, this is my own personal list of my favorite albums of this year. I'm not saying they're the best. I'm not saying that all the albums that aren't on here aren't worth listening to. I'm just saying that these are the 10 albums that really stood out for me and the ones that I kept coming back to throughout the year. And so with that little bit of a preface, let's just dive into these guys because we really want to find out who's taking home the #1 album. Let's just dive in. So this guy was really my introduction to doom metal. The timing that it took for a lot of these themes and structures to really make themselves apparent, it kept giving back to me the more that I put into it, and for that reason I had to put this at number 10. These guys show once again that progressive metal is in great hands. A lot of bands suffer for the sophomore slump, but these guys rose ahead of it. A lot of the tracks on here kept in my head, and that brilliant 19-minute closing piece on this really moved me. It really showed where these guys are going to go, and I am very excited for their future. They're also able to influence a little bit of fun within the music as well. They're not 100% serious all the time. I love within one of the instrumental pieces where you have that meme of, "It's time to stop." I love that, and I love that they included that within this piece. So yeah, I kept coming back to it. It was a great year for neo-prog, and so there's a couple of neo-prog tracks on this top 10 list, and coming in at number 8 we have We Are Legends by Magenta, and this is probably my favorite piece from Magenta. I love that it's structured very, very brilliantly in just having that title track epic starting us all off with that 20-minute piece, and I love where that goes. I love that they are taking the best aspects of an epic and really utilizing it. And then they have the two smaller pieces on this, both averaging about 10 minutes long, so it provides that perfectly digestible album. And within each of the smaller pieces, we have a different facet of the band. I love that the first one is in a 3/3 time, so it provides a waltz, and I love where that goes. And I love the closing track on this. I mean, so many bands within this kind of a structure kind of write off the last two tracks or the two smaller tracks as just being kind of like a throwaway track, but these guys put in the effort of really utilizing those last couple of tracks as brilliant benchmarking pieces, and I couldn't help but love that. Another neo-prog band, this one coming from ANUBIS, and we had a lot of albums from different ANUBIS bands. We had ANUBIS Gate and ANUBIS Spire, and now we just have plain old ANUBIS. And ANUBIS shows once again that they are a force within the neo-prog group. Each of their albums have just been dripping in brilliance, and the second hand shows once again that these guys can just put out brilliant music. I love the concept, I love the story, I love how dark the music is, but also how bright it can be. A lot of these themes have been stuck in my head. That ending piece on this album, just it followed me a lot within the year, and I could not help but just gush about this album. Okay, so we have a late runner in the game with the Faceless in Becoming a Ghost, and again, this album just blew me away. I feel like it's their strongest album to date. I love Autotheism and I love a lot of their other stuff, but this one was the most unified and structurally cohesive whole for an album, and I loved just the meaty licks that we have on the guitar structure. The drumming still needs a little bit of work, but I still felt like they rose to the occasion and just blew it out of the park. Okay, we're coming into the top 5, meeting that threshold, and we're coming into the top 5. And starting us all off, I love this album by Mastodon. I know a lot of people weren't quite as warm with it as I am, but I mean, for the longest time, this was in my top 3 albums, even though it was a pretty early contender. As I said, this is probably the strongest output that we've had from Mastodon since Crack the Sky. They work so well within a concept, and you can hear the grieving process the band is going through with a few of these situations that the band members are going through. That harmonizations, the 4 singers on this album are just They're at peak performance, and I love what they're doing. There is a little bit of fat on the Emperor of Sand, and I think if they trimmed that back a little bit, we would have had a complete masterpiece. But still, the fat doesn't completely bring back the rest of the album, so I still love it, and I still groove along to it, and it's still one of my favorite outputs by Mastodon. Now, this is one of the few albums that I haven't actually reviewed on my page, only because it doesn't really fit within my, I guess, curriculum or my MO, but The Three Worlds, the music from Wolfworks by Mac Richter, this took me places. This transported me outside of my body, and it's brilliant. The contemporary composer of Max Richter is one of my favorites, and I was actually introduced to him this year, and I'm kicking myself that I wasn't introduced to him earlier than this, because he's provided so many amazing moments within music that I just gush over. And what he's able to do on this album, it's transcending a lot of what we had originally thought classical music could do. By infusing a lot more of the modern and contemporary styles, we have a blending of brilliant sound and like soundscapes. Just the overall presentation of this album is, it blew my mind. I love what he was able to do with like kind of the choppy moments and that blending of styles. Like, it's very melancholy and a very subtle album, but overall it just made me weep. This album came out very early last year, and again, another one that really stuck with me. This one, again, was in my top 3 albums for the longest time. What put this over the top for me is the storyline, the characters, the twists and turn that the narrative has. It is kind of a radio play in the fact that there's no real like singable lyrics. All the lyrics are a spoken play. The way that they infuse it with the music, it matches the tone of the story so well, and I love what they were able to do with this. If you haven't listened to it by now, definitely do so. The only contemporary album thus far to receive that masterpiece rating from me. There's a couple of reasons why I didn't put it at number 1. I'm going to just gush about this album for a bit. It is Godspeed's, in my mind, their strongest work, their most cohesive work, their most unified work. Every single time I listen to it, I start to cry. Right at that point where that violin comes in within the last track and just like unifies the sound within the playing style. There is no fat to trim on this album. It is one of those perfect albums in each note is in its perfect place at the perfect time. It challenges what music can do, and I love that this style of like post-rock, ambient rock is able to do that and challenge you of what music can do, and it's for that reason that it's number 2 and very well earned. So then, what's at number 1? Okay, so Mike Oldfield's Return to OMMADAWN. I had been kind of going back and forth of which one was going to take the number 1 spot. Was it Luciferian Towers or was it going to be Return to OMMADAWN? And the reason why I put Return to OMMADAWN on the number 1 spot is, in my mind, it is Mike Oldfield's masterpiece. Like, this is what his entire career has been going towards. It's a semi-sequel trilogy to the OMMADAWN series, with Era Rock being the semi-second installment. OMMADAWN, up to that point, had been my favorite output from Mike Oldfield, and the problem that I always had with Mike Oldfield was one side of the album was a masterpiece, and I loved it, like Tubular Bells Part 1, Return to OMMADAWN Part 1, Heritage Ridge Part 2, 5 Miles Out, the big long song. All of these, the first or second side is just brilliant with music. But then once we got to the second side, I'm like, well, this is just the leftovers of what didn't quite work. Within Return to OMMADAWN, both sides finally were the masterpiece. And within each work, we have a crescendo, we have a peak, we have a destination that we're heading to. And so it's the journey towards that destination and the payoff of reaching that destination. Having that gushing of joy, and that piece, that aspect really shows why this one gets the leg up of all the other ones, because it ends on such an optimistic sound. And in my mind, like Inception, an optimistic sound will always 100% trump a pessimistic sound. And I think that's why Luciferian Towers was number 2 to Return to OMMADAWN's number 1. Luciferian Towers was brilliant, but it did have a little bit of a more raging against the machine, of a more, we need to stop the oppressors, raw, we're in a terrible situation, we need to overthrow, we need to rally against and fight. And that is a beautiful sentiment, and one that I highly applaud. But within Return to OMMADAWN, it's more of a celebration of what we already have. It's a celebration of where we had come, where we had gone, and that realization of yes. You know, it's kind of like that Ulysses ending of just yes, yes, yes. It's a perfect mirror to how I try to live my life. So in that respects, Return to OMMADAWN is above the fold in that sense. So that's my top 10. What did you guys think? I know you're going to be disagreeing about it, and I encourage that. If your list was exactly like mine, it'd be a really boring world to live in, because a lot of other albums wouldn't have been showcased. This is just my own list. I want to hear about yours by commenting down below. I'm going to be doing another review in a couple of days. I'm actually just going to record it just in a couple of seconds, but it's the next 30 albums that didn't make the list. So it's going to be like a rapid fire, really quick, maybe 1 or 2 sentences of where those fall in, because we had a lot of amazing releases, and I don't want these top 10 to overshadow those releases. So I'm going to be talking about those in another video. Watch out for that in a couple of days. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, this is Notes signing off for 2017. Notes out. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching once again. I'm just doing a little bit of an end card here. It's December, which means I've got a Notes Review community survey going on. I've left that link down below, so go fill that out. It's a census. It's just to let me know a little bit more about yourself. I've got a couple fun links there for other videos to check out, as well as to subscribe, so definitely check those out, as well as some social media things down below. Thank you guys once again. Notes out.